What is it about string that you enjoy?
I think I did a lot of handcrafts as a child, and most of them were sewing and embroidery and cross stitch. So it's just something I'm
Mm.
really familiar with. This is an installation called Mother Tree. And by this time I had children. They're in college now. So this was probably 10 years ago, 10 years after my first child was born. And this was really inspired by a comment that I overheard. My first child was a newborn. I was
Oh,
at the Japanese garden in Portland, and I was sitting on a bench and I was nursing him. And this dad and his two children were in the vicinity, really not that far away. And I could tell he was going to say something to them. And I was thinking he was maybe going to like scold me or something for nursing my child in public. But he pointed to me and he's like, "That is one of the most beautiful things in the world." And I
oh,
still get chills saying that. I was so, like, I just couldn't believe it. And
yeah,
I
it's
held
lovely.
on to that thought. And then I just thought about, so this mother tree, the big picture on the left, you can see that it's mother's milk flowing from the chest. So the white
Oh,
strands of crocheted
yeah.
thread, and then they turn into roots as they hit the floor.
Oh,
And I had this installation in a city building in Portland, and I won the chance to show it there. And I had a month. And part of it was I was supposed to engage the public. So
yeah.
I sat there and I crocheted every day during lunch hour because it was a city building. So there were city workers coming in and out. And there was a school group that came and visited. I got some attention, some press, and people started hearing about this. And so I also put a call out to people through my newsletter, and through in knitting shops. I had a postcard talking about the project, asking for crocheted roots. So people sent me
Mm,
20 foot long strands, which that doesn't take very long. I figured that's easy. Someone can just sit down and crochet that in 10 to 30 minutes and
mhm.
send it to me. Because when I envisioned the project, I realized I would never be able to crochet enough strands to make this look like what I was envisioning. So it
Yeah,
was really amazing community project to get all of the
yeah.
strands in the mail and to get notes from people, and just to talk with people and crochet with them on site, and just to think about motherhood and how, every mother nurses their child or can nurse their child. Not everyone does. And we all have mothers, and it's just like this long continuum, and
Yeah.
how mothers, different things we go through as mothers, how every mother has gone through that.
Did you specify a color scheme? Because I'm not seeing a lot of bright reds on the
I
on
did. I said natural colors. I did
I
get one hot pink, so one person
oh,
didn't listen. But I
yeah.
got really, there was a woman who sent me some crocheted seaweed that she'd
Oh,
collected on the beach. And she actually sent it to me wet. And I didn't know this. And I think I was in contact with her, and she said, "Open that package because that seaweed's wet. I left it wet in case you wanted to form it in a certain way." Someone took apart an old sweater and knit it from that. So there was meaning in some of
mm,
these. This is an artist book that I made a few years later when I turned 50, which is 5 years ago now. I
yeah.
thought, I'm going to make an artist book that relates to Mother Tree. So there's the little dress with the
Yeah.
crocheted mother's milk, and I made a print. So the green piece is a print called
Mhm.
Mapping Motherhood. And I made it a community piece too. I had people contribute words that were about their mother or about motherhood. So you can see in the top right is a detail. It's like the rings of a tree, and each ring, so there's 50 rings, and each ring has a word like strong, frustrating.
How big is this in real life?
The box is probably just 10 inches tall by
Mm,
8 inches across. So everything collapses. Again, the engineering, I love figuring this all out. There's an
yeah.
armature that the dress sits on that comes apart and fits in the box, and the print folds up.
And what is the skirt on the right bottom?
Well, I made this too at that time. So my grandmother had a tablecloth, and I've since heard that this is a thing. So she had it at family reunions. She had drawn a spiral with a pencil from the center out of this tablecloth. And then people wrote their name. They signed the tablecloth at the family reunions. And then in between the reunions, she would embroider their name. So my name was on there several times because I had gone to a couple reunions. And so I had this orange skirt and I thought, I'm going to put these same words, I'm going to embroider them onto the skirt. So that's the mother tree skirt. So this is my studio in Colorado. So we moved to Colorado in 2012 for my husband's work and found this great studio in an old schoolhouse in a tiny town. It's about 20 miles from where I live. So I go up there 3 days a week. I don't drive up every day. It's a beautiful drive. It's very quiet there and I've got great light. And every September, I have a retreat called the Red Cliff Paper Retreat. So these are some of the people at a retreat one year. And this was an installation I did a couple years ago here in Colorado called The Wish. And it was another community piece. My projects take a long time to evolve. So I started it when I was still in Portland. I had this image of a giant dandelion hanging somewhere and that it would contain wishes somehow. This was just, again, another serendipitous moment. I met someone here in my town who runs the public art program. It's a very small program, but she knew of a library in Denver that was looking for an artist to do a project. And just one thing led to another. There was going to be an open call and all of this. And I read what they were looking for and it just felt like it was written for me. So I called the person in charge and I just said, hey, I have this idea. And she liked it. So I went and met. And then when I went to the library and they were like, you could do it anywhere in the library, but there was this one room that it was just like meant to be in. So and that's where it ended up being. It's this triangular room. So this is the abaca with the high shrinkage. And those discs are all connected to bamboo sticks that come off of a central core that I had a wood turner make and drilled all these holes into. And then the amazing thing was that I thought that the wishes could perhaps come from the community and be connected by sound. And I'd been collecting wishes from people online. This library had worked with a sound artist already in an adjacent room. So they had this sound equipment there. It was just like, really? And so they were able to come up with some extra funds to hire him to do a little more work to make this sound piece. So they did this all online. I would never have thought of this, but you can hire voice actors online to record. So they had people of different ages, this is a big Hispanic community where this library is. So Spanish and English, young and old, people recorded maybe 20 or 25 of the wishes that I'd collected. And then when you walk in the room, there's like a tripwire that makes the sound come on. You start hearing them around you.
What is it about gathering things from the community that gives you joy?
Well, I think with that Mother Tree project, I realized how much richer it was with the community. Like if I had made all those crocheted strands, I would have just bought 10 different yarns and it would have been more homogenous. But when I opened it up to the community, they got creative too. And they sent me the seaweed and their grandmother's old sweater they took apart. And so it just inspired me. I mean, it's just was amazing. And then the stories, people would send me stories with their strand, like what it meant to them or where they were at with motherhood, or they were sitting with their mother who died while they were crocheting this work for my piece. I mean, really moving things.
Yeah. So, and then with this one, getting wishes and hearing wishes from other people, it adds a depth to it that you might not have been able to experience for yourself and for the community itself. Yeah.
Yes, and when you hear other people's wishes, you really you get empathy. Like somebody's wish was, I wish to walk again. Okay, then you're like, oh my gosh, I've got it so great, I can walk. Or whatever. Or you maybe think of something that's hard in your life. So it just, I think it really strikes a chord in a lot of ways.
Are you thinking, I don't know, we haven't gone through the full slides, but what is your next project?
I have one. I don't have a slide of it, but
Oh,
I want to make a giant lantern that you walk into, and so you are the light in a way. But it also will be something. My working title is kind of personal space, so you'll be confined inside of there.
Okay.
But then somebody maybe would see your shadow from outside. So
Yeah.
something about that inside, outside, personal space, and where you stand in the world, and the power
Oh,
you have as a person. And yeah. Okay, I just wanted to show a few more artist books. So my father was a nuclear physicist, and I never really understood much about what he did. He studied how the world began, the Big Bang and all of that. And so this particular piece is about shape and color and incorporating watermarks. So along the bottom, you can see there's a watermark that is sort of illuminated by the dark colored sheet of abaca behind it. And then when you turn the page, you see behind that on the right, the purple sheet is a paper cut. I worked with Beatrice Caron, who's an amazing paper cut artist. And this book goes from the number 1 to 7. You can barely see on the front cover in the top shot. There's 7 little shapes. So the numbers 1 to 7 represent the point, the line, the triangle, the square, the pentagon, hexagon, and septagon. So those shapes. And then it's the 7 colors of the rainbow. 7 is like important number. So the book moves through the colors of the rainbow and these 7 shapes, and the watermarks are geometric, like those shapes that somehow relate to those 7 shapes. And then the paper cut, I asked Beatrice to cut figures. So there's a little figure in each of those, and it moves from the life cycle, from the baby in the womb up to a meditating Buddha is number 7. A couple years ago, this was a reference material for a book that I did called Tangential, which we'll see in the next slide. But I participated in this project with the University of Iowa, where they gave the artist a book to use as inspiration. The show was called Handy. You had to make a book that would engage your hands in addition to your eyes. This is Euclid's Geometry, the 1570 edition, and it had these little flaps in it where you could actually study geometry and make the shapes that the text was talking about. And I learned like that. I did my own interpretation of this. So the front cover, Tangential, that's a pulp stenciling, so kind of like a reverse watermark. It's all pulp, in other words. The tangential is printed, but the design is paper pulp. And then I cut these shapes. Again, so in Interluceo, that last book, they were flat shapes. And now I'm bringing them into 3 dimensions. And so tetrahedron, so the triangle becomes the tetrahedron, and the octahedron, and I think there are 7 different ones here too. Maybe not. And so the text is just about how the shape goes from 2 to 3D. And then you can actually fold up these shapes on the page, but you can't take them out, and you can't, they don't have tabs so that you can fully assemble them. You have to unfold them before you turn the next page. And then I did hand stitching. So the hand stitching is representative of the 2-dimensional shape. But there's dotted lines that represent the parts that are behind. And one other thing I was thinking about with this was that Euclid, who did all this work about geometry, lived before paper. So how in the heck how was he thinking about these shapes? Was he folding them in leaves, or was he drawing them in the sand? So that's sort of the concept of you can fold them up on the page, but then you have to unfold them before you turn the page. So they're not they're not permanent. This one's called Prism. So the little glass prisms that break the array of light in color. So that's the idea behind this. And I wanted to make a book that was a rainbow. So this is just Abaca. The sheets are just plain sheets of Abaca. I think there's 27 pages. So you just thumb through these luscious colors, and it gradually changes from yellow to orange to red. And then it goes back again because it's all one big signature. It goes one way and then it goes back the other way like a rainbow. So now we're back to my newer books and just sort of some other things that I do. So my first books came out about 20 years ago, and then I had about a 10-year break, and then these two books were back to back, playing with paper and playing with pop-ups. So these are more exploring the versatility of paper and project-based. They were done with a different publisher, Quarry Books. I have a new book coming out next fall that I'm doing with Story, which is first publisher. So I just want people to know about my blog. I write a blog called The Sunday Paper. Every week I feature different artists doing unusual, interesting, and beautiful things with paper, and I'm always looking for content, so people are welcome to submit content and to also subscribe to receive the blog. This is just an example of someone I featured on the blog. Paper for Water is the two older girls in the picture. When they were 5 and 8, they learned about world hunger, and kids couldn't go to school because they had to carry water, and so they, along with their parents, is like a family organization, have now raised over, I think it's $2 million for water organizations around the world through origami. So they fold origami, like that thing in the middle, and sell it, and the money all goes to these projects. So they have a couple partner organizations. And it's just amazing. I do a podcast also. So I started it in 2016, and I just released episode 67. I'm interviewing a different paper artist, paper maker, or paper engineer, paper cutter, all kinds of. And then I teach online classes. I've finally gotten kind of a structure. I've been developing new classes. And now I think I can go through a cycle. So I do one called Paper and Light, one that's flexible book structures, and then one that's coming up in February is called Weave Through Winter, and it's a challenge, 30 days of paper weaving in a row. And it's intense, but it's really powerful, because you really start seeing weaving everywhere, like in the trees or what, you'll just, you think about weaving for 30 days and then do a little weaving every day. So that's the Weave Through Winter that will be coming up. And my online classes they're not live. They are, the content is available online. And then we have an online classroom where we share images and ask questions and create a really wonderful community. I think I have another slide, which is the 5th year. So I did 4 years of a printed calendar, and then coming up just, I don't know when this episode is going to launch, but starting in January of 2021, I'm doing the paper year online. So it's a year-long online class with a project every month that will be in the classroom, and then we'll have an online community. I am adding a Zoom meeting every month, so we'll meet on Zoom and share what we've created and have a fun time. And I also love featuring guest artists, so I have 4 guest artists: Sean Sheehy, Alyssa Campbell, Susan Scher, and Paula Krieg, are each taking a month.
So can people enroll late if they don't see it like until the end of February? Can they still join in?
Yeah, I have a monthly option. You can join for the whole year or by the month. This is just it's like a free online class that I have called the Paper Advisor, with a lot of resources that I've collected over the years, and like places to buy paper and my favorite paper tools. And I'm making more YouTube videos about things about working with paper, like paper grain direction, gluing, and how to choose papers. So it's just an invitation to sign up for that. On the menu bar, you see Free Paper Advisor. You click on that and you can join.
Thank you for joining today.
You're welcome. It's really fun.
I just want to go make some paper. Thank you for joining us for Artist Bookhouse Conversation with Helen Hiebert. You can find her website at the link in the description. And if you would like to support more programming like this coming from Artist Bookhouse, please visit our website at artistbookhouse.org/donate. Thank you.